Welcome to today's presentation. We'll be talking about email and specifically dynamic individualization at scale. So first, a little bit about Jetlore. Jetlore was founded in 2011 and at its very core is a team of data scientists. Jetlore's grown quickly over the last several years and this year we had some great news in that Gartner declared Jetlore a cool vendor for 2016. Our agenda for today is going to be to examine or deconstruct the current state of email. We're going to discuss individualization, what it means, and how to develop a systematic understanding of each email. We're going to then take a look at turning this understanding into action and how to deliver mass individualization of content across emails. And then we're going to discuss how individualization can serve as a competitive advantage in the marketplace and kind of explain how that happens. Okay, taking a look at the current state. Most email today still uses generic content of some type or another. We're all familiar with sort of what kind of a banner can look like. Sometimes it's great creative and imagery. Sometimes it's a discount like this. There is a little content swapping that occurs based on segments, but this is kind of limited to a certain amount of banners that can be kind of swapped in and out, or certain types of content. But you know, the reality is that content in emails is generic for a reason. First, it's hard to know what to display for an individual in an email. So there has to be a fair amount of calculation that goes on when that email is opened, and that's hard to do. Secondly, there are technical barriers, and some pretty significant ones, to delivery of individualized content in email, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And thirdly, email is a frequent touch channel. And if you look across all the different sorts of emails that are sent, from transactional to triggered to promotional to life cycle, that's a lot of touches, and so it's hard to keep the content fresh. So quite often, for these reasons, the content remains generic, and we'll talk about that kind of more in a minute. Another type of kind of content that you see in emails today are product recommendations. And we're all kind of familiar with what this looks like, a little strip of products that kind of shows different variations, trying to see if we can find the right thing for a person. This often ends up being really repetitive, and in a sense, putting product recommendations in most email types, in most emails, is a misapplication of this technology. This sort of product recommendation, kind of wisdom of the crowds, it's called collaborative filtering. It really is limited in its effectiveness to the lower purchase funnel, where you know precisely what a customer is interested in. So a common type of email today is what I think of as a beautiful layout with great graphics, and this is a typical example of that. So you have banners, you have maybe some products, and the reality is, though, that these sorts of emails, the content is still almost always hand-picked, and maybe there's a little bit of content swapping. So at the end of the day, the customer still isn't hearing that you are speaking to them as an individual. They're really seeing, here's the products that you have to offer, and it's not really individualized. So to review the current state, the problem is that none of these approaches address the specifics of each individual. If you can't show kind of individualized products, the customer is going to kind of understand that, and they're going to say, well, this is a generic email, and they might be motivated by discounts. And at the end of the day, segmentation that's used to deliver content and select content is not the same as individualization. And the question is, in email, can experiences be tailored for each individual, and can this be done at scale, which is required for email? So let's talk about individualization a little bit. We're going to do a little introduction, we're going to talk through some issues, and then we're going to discuss different approaches to how you can solve this issue. So let's take a look at the definition of individualization. What we mean and what we see is an understanding of a person at a very granular level. And developing this understanding using data from a lifetime of interactions across a broad spectrum of content. And when we say a broad spectrum of content, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but everything, of course, from products to the categories they look at, but there's many other types as well that have emerged kind of in the recent years. And then blending this data across different sources, what you get from these different sources to develop deep insights about the customer. And then importantly, leveraging these insights for action. In other words, wherever the customer engages, leveraging these insights to deliver them an experience that is individualized. And really, this starts with email. Email is a great channel for this, and we'll talk about why in a minute. First, it's 100% user identification. You understand who you're sending this email to, and that's not the case on all channels, particularly on site. When someone opens an email, you can cookie them, so you understand who they are when they move around to different channels, and so that's super helpful. And the third thing is that this frequent touch of email, it's like a regular survey of a customer's interests. And when you do this right, you can gather a lot of information. You can track all the content that they see, all the products, all the categories, all the banners, whether it's promotional or inspirational of some type. You can track that, and you can get a lot of information about what they're interested in and what they're ignoring. And altogether, this makes email the best place to start kind of the process of individualization. It's a channel that's tailored almost perfectly for this. And in some sense, we think of it as the killer app of individualization. So if we want to try to understand an individual, like what do we need to do? How do you represent the diverse and ever-changing attributes of an individual? So you can look at their purchases, their browsing habits and history, shopping cart behavior. Maybe they've added some things that they haven't purchased, searches they've made on site. Certainly these are important first-party types of information that are used, and you can gain a lot of information from them. But now you also have new types that are emerging from retailers and brands' attempts to engage their customers more deeply and over time. So you have the ability to follow certain people on a website, maybe certain producers or certain content providers. Customers can favorite items. They can provide ratings on products. They can build wish lists. They can subscribe to in-stock notifications. You can extract information like brand affinity, sizes, preferred colors, styles, and a whole lot more. You can also track what sorts of editorial engagement. Now the thing is, you can't look at any one of these items or actions and base your individualization strategy on that. What you really need to do is blend together insights from all of these actions and properly weigh them, and blend these disparate actions into one kind of lifetime profile. And at that point, then you have a deep understanding that you can take action on. So when you're going about building a lifetime profiles, I thought we'd illustrate kind of what we do with Jetlore and its technology, and to represent kind of the state of what can be done. So if you take a look at kind of this example of a profile, Alexa's profile, you have a category represented by the shoe image, you have a product, you have a banner, the jumpsuit image, you can have other sorts of information as well. And what you do is you can extract the attribute level data. And I want to put emphasis on the attribute level data. What we mean by that is all of the data that describes what these pieces of content are about, because then that allows you to take these attributes and blend them in a model. And it's important to understand kind of the different types of attributes in the model. So like a brand affinity might be long-lasting, a click on a product might, its value might atrophy very quickly. Things like size are also long-lasting. So you build all of that and you put it into a model, and from that model you can kind of deeply understand what this user is about, what their preferences are. So now that you have this understanding, how do you act on it? How do you tailor experiences for an individual, and then how do you do that at scale? So there's really two core problems that you need to solve in order to take this understanding and turn it into action, and action being delivering individualized experiences into each email for a customer. The first one is a ranking problem. So when they show up, when they open an email, how do you determine which content gets selected for that experience? The second thing is, how do you take the content that has been selected and then deliver it into the email? These two problems are crucial to solve, otherwise you'll end up with either kind of a repetitive experience, a generic experience, or maybe if you're trying to do something real time, you'll end up with a kind of a bad user experience from slow delivery or things like that. We'll get into what we mean. But quickly here, JetRanker and Van Gogh are technologies developed by Tailor that we use to help solve these problems, and I'm going to be referencing those a little bit because it helps me kind of paint kind of the scope and scale of these problems. So the first one is ranking content for an individual's experience. So how do you know what an individual wants until they open the email, right? They can be on your website, they can be mobile, they can be in a location. There's lots of updates that can happen. Your inventory can change, prices can change. There's lots of things that can happen since you last saw them. So you really can't pre-compute what that individual should see. And additionally, that's a very expensive thing to do from a computational standpoint. So what needs to happen is that the content, all of your content, think of your catalog, whether it's thousands, tens of thousands, or millions of items, it needs to be scored and ranked for each user when they open that email. And it needs to happen at open time, because then you can incorporate all of that most recent information into the calculation. So then that gives you sort of a set of content. In this case, it's 6 items, 4 products, and 2 categories that have been selected. And now you have to think about how to deliver that content into an email. And actually, this is a challenging problem because email does not allow JavaScript. And to get technical for a second, email doesn't allow JavaScript because there are security issues. There's lots of other issues related to this, and that also means that the techniques that are used on site don't work in email. So content management can only happen via the insertion of images. And right now that's what happens, right? You might select a few images, you put them in your HTML, or maybe you swap them out using kind of some of the tools that are out there today, and then that content gets delivered via an image. But the problem is, for mass individualization, is that you need to have your full catalog on standby in a format ready for insertion. Or at least what you need to have is the full pool of anything that you want to be available to be selected for individual experience needs to be fully ready. And that's because you can't just render that image in real time. If you go back to those 6 images from the ranking that we just looked at, if you say, okay, here are the 6 images, and then you try to render those in real time and insert them into email, you'll have a very slow, bad customer experience. So the solution is to pre-render your entire catalog into tiles and then have it ready to go when those items are selected. So what do we mean by a tile? So retailers and brands have a lot of images, like this image that we're showing here, but that's not an image that's actually useful when you get into a promotional email, or maybe content that you want to have in a transactional email. What you really need is a tile, and a tile is that image rendered with all the useful information around it. And if this is rendered and ready to go, kind of held in a content distribution network as an example, and then when it's selected, it can be delivered into an email. So when you pre-render your catalog, everything that you want to have available to be individualized needs to be pre-rendered, and then when that content is selected, it can be inserted immediately. There's basically no time for rendering once that email is already open. So Tailor's technology in this space we call Van Gogh, and Van Gogh pre-renders your entire catalog. Once again, whether it's tens of thousands or millions of items, Jetlore has it available, Van Gogh has it available, and ready to be inserted. So when you put those two together, you can then rank and deliver individualized experiences for every individual. And so the way Jetlore goes about this, I'm going to show kind of how these pieces work together to give you a sample of how to solve this problem, is that we have this tool called the layout generator. And the layout generator creates a wireframe of what is desired to be in that email. So you can see in this one we have a promotional banner. We have 4 products underneath it that are related to it. We have an L1 category with some products, an L2 category with products. So if you look at that, that's kind of a wireframe for a kind of that modern, good-looking promotional email that I talked about. And so when the email is sent, it's really sent as an empty wireframe. And when it is opened, the user ID is passed to JetRanker, which is our ranking tool. And then at open time, JetRanker sifts through, it does the ranking solution that I talked about. It sifts through all your content. It does, algorithmically. It's a big data problem. It's using AI. It's using all kinds of algorithms. It picks the content to insert. And now, crucially, it is able to retrieve that content which has been pre-rendered from Van Gogh, whether it's products or catalogs or promotions. And then, in less than 200 milliseconds, it does all of that and delivers it into that email wireframe from the layout generator. And that is how you can mass individualize email for customers. And so now this is something, this new capability allows you to deliver a different email for every individual out there and to be able to do it based on their lifetime profile. Now, when you take a look at this, this actually offers a competitive advantage in the marketplace because it allows you to engage an individual, leveraging what you know, and making the experience a dialogue, and kind of conversational dialogue commerce is something that it engages customers and it keeps them kind of coming back for more and contributing, and this can ignite a virtuous circle. So what happens is you offer these individualized content experiences, and then when the customer looks at it, you can listen to their response. It might be that they just ignore all the content, but that's information, or they might engage with something. Either way, you update their profile. And then based on that, you can adapt and improve the relevance of the next experience. Helps keep it fresh, helps keep it relevant. And what this does is it helps the customer see a benefit to continued engagement. So they continue to invest and engage with your site, kind of with all the different methods of engagement, and that builds their profile. So you get as a customer who is invested in their profile because they're seeing a positive return, and that positive return yields better experiences for them, and that keeps them as a loyal customer. So when you have that, then what the customer is reluctant to search elsewhere because they know when they go to your site, when they visit your brand, they know that they're going to be treated like someone who is recognized. So it's kind of like a concierge experience, and customers value that. All right, well, thanks for joining us today. And if you want to learn more about Jetlore, just visit our site and ping us, and we can help you deliver fresh and relevant experiences for every individual.